Hey guys, we're here with our fourth week dev log thing. You guys are probably looking for the Unreal 4.15 uh, engine update
Because so are we.
because
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, when we rolled the game up to 4.15, it broke like half of the game. Like so many little things, like lots of
It
like
was Death by a Thousand Knives, I think.
it's
Yeah.
that has to do with the light mapping stuff that they put in now that presumably is more efficient, but it runs into all these problems and
There's a bunch of little
there's a
stuff.
lot of editor bugs, lots of little editor bugs, old like
Yeah.
4.7 from way like years ago kind of editor bugs that are all back now,
Yeah.
and it's like
So the big thing is
why?
like 4.15 came out and we had been playing around with it. Um, but
Yeah,
we were overly confident that we'd be able to roll up to 4.15 because the rollouts for
the
the
last
last
few,
year
the last
have
like
been
yeah,
super good.
probably
I think
any
maybe there's been like
from
one hiccup across since like 4.7.
from like 10, like no, even from 9, yeah, maybe even as far back as 7 or 8.
7 fixed a lot of stuff. And then like
All the versions of Unreal since then we've been able to roll up to just like cascade up all the new features,
yeah,
nothing breaks, only things are fixed. This is the first one that lots of things are now
yeah.
broken,
Which
which
makes sense because there's a lot of under the hood stuff that got fundamentally changed this time around. So, what does that mean? It means it's coming. It means that we've got to fix some of the things that Unreal broke. It means that
will
Unreal
probably
needs to fix a bunch of stuff that they broke.
wait
And
for
then,
the a bug fix on the new engine version.
yeah.
We're gonna wait for a 4.15.1 or 4.15.2 ish until we actually roll the game up to that. Which means that for now, still don't have NVIDIA SLI. For now, we still don't have the new texture streaming stuff,
A
the
lot,
new
frankly, a
visual
lot
RAM
of
stuff.
the cool new stuff that we were talking about has really no bearing on how the game looks or plays. It really is just behind the scenes stuff that makes it more efficient or run a little bit better.
Yeah,
So you really shouldn't notice any difference.
because it runs pretty well
But we
anyway.
figured rather than spending 3 weeks fixing the problems, you'd rather get Japan sooner because there's a tremendous amount of refinement, both in terms of look and feel of the game and mechanics, that Japan is going to quote unquote fix for the game,
Improve.
improve. Uh, so that's coming. Not coming super soon, but it's coming.
Yeah.
There is an update going out right now.
Yes.
It's being built right now. It fixes some audio issues that we've discovered.
Yeah.
It's just one of the big problems with audio is there's just lots of little clips, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to get them all balanced to make sure that they all fire right every time and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
When you have 10 different recording sessions and you brought your voice actor in, you're recording this and then you're recording that, and like different lines, different characters, different
Yeah.
audio balances, and it's like you try to normalize it all before it goes in, but
At the end of the day, it's probably our weakest thing
it's
between the
yeah.
two of us.
You'll
We
you'll
don't do audio,
you'll
so it was
probably
really
notice if
difficult
you've
for
been
us.
playing it, there are moments where the audio where the spoken lines get really loud and the spoken lines. I've another pass at kind of making all those about
Just
better.
hammering out all the big standouts. And
So
that's getting better. So that those issues are fixed. We removed a couple like stupid debugging things that got left in. I think we left
yes,
in some weapons on the floor in the armory,
there were
which was
weapons on the floor in the
dumb.
armory, which we noticed
Um,
probably a few days after that patch went out.
and it was just kind of, well, we can fix it and just push out a patch that's just that, or we can just roll out some of the stuff that we've been working on,
In the meantime, I'm sure you guys had fun playing with
shortcutting a lot of the unlocks.
some of the later tech weapons.
Anyway, so a bunch of little bug fixes. We added trackpad locomotion,
Yes,
so that's a big
new
one.
feature, new switch
Um,
in the settings menu. You can turn it over, and now instead of using your little teleport, you can power slide around on your little Roomba Segway
it works a lot
to your
like
heart's
Onward,
content.
where forward is wherever your hand that is pressing the left hand is
Yes,
pointing.
and the directions are relative to that. So like
It makes
if you
sense. It
point to
does
your
make sense.
left and hit right, you go forward. Like it's all hand relative.
Yeah.
It'll be comfortable.
Your hand is one joystick, your thumb is the other joystick, basically. What else? So that's a huge thing because we know a lot of people don't buy Vive games unless they've got trackpad locomotion.
Well,
it tends to polarize people.
It's more
so
absorbing. It's more absorbing if you've played for a long time, but you can't just have it because then you alienate anyone who gets sick still. Which anyone who's just bought a Vive will still get sick.
And the trackpad locomotion stuff is super fun. It really
it's more action hero.
It's super action-y.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is
the X-ray stuff.
The X-ray stuff. We learned very early on, before even the Minimap was in, that people had a hard time, especially with the kind of big buildings, figuring out where all the map was, just finding out where all the enemies were. There was some issues there, and we tried to solve it with the Minimap, and I think that helps mitigate a tremendous amount of it.
But it requires the player to check.
Yeah,
that's kind of thing. Like if you're in a moment where like, oh, are there any snails somewhere? You can pop on your map and you see it, and like you see the radar pips, and it's like there they are. I know exactly where they are. But it's very active. It requires you to like to seek that information. It isn't.
It's not a passive, just kind of thing in the background that's giving you more player information. The big thing with us is all the features are there, but it's refinement of those features. How do we introduce those features in such a way that the player, without needing to work too hard, can arrive at all the information that he needs to play the game well?
Yes.
So we've added XRay. And what does XRay do?
From a technical standpoint or from a gameplay standpoint?
Just from a gameplay standpoint.
From a gameplay standpoint, if an enemy goes behind a wall, you'll be able to see them through the wall. Their silhouette of them, like filled in a color, and the color will correspond to their type. So, heavy metal, like energy snail, goes behind a wall, purple. That's heavy metal. You can look through. So even in the levels that have like lots of buildings, you don't lose track of like where the danger is.
Which is what we found is it makes levels so much easier to understand.
Yes. It also makes them a lot easier to beat, even for veteran players, because you get into situations where like you're kind of running around the map like with your guns, and you see them coming around the corner, and you are already shooting by the time that they like enter your line of sight.
There's a lot of good stuff happening with that. I think I would encourage you, even if you've beaten Georgia, to go back in and play a level with it, because I think you'll be surprised at how much that improves kind of your quality of life playing.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that as a new feature.
Yeah.
But that was just kind of a side note. I mean, we worked on that for a couple hours yesterday, and that fixed all that stuff.
Yeah.
What we've been really working on is the Japan maps and all the Japan content,
which is a lot of props, a lot of little stuff, a lot of
little bullshit: rocks, shrubs, roofs,
walls,
doors, windows. Yeah.
Shrines.
A lot of little stuff, but I think it looks pretty
phenomenal.
Damn good.
It looks phenomenal. It looks better than anything in any of the Georgia levels, anything in the United States levels that looked like at all.
We're definitely going to have to go back and visually update Georgia at some point. Not right now because we don't want to split our attention. But I think Japan will surprise people how good a game can look to play on a Vive.
Japan also, like with Japan, like they're not only is there visual stuff we're gonna have to go back to Georgia with, there's a lot of mechanic stuff they're gonna have to go back to Georgia for once this Japan update rolls out.
So what do? Our very first payload map is done.
Yeah. A little bit more dressing maybe, and we need.
But we've got
some finalized art on stuff.
All the timings and distances and map size down, which is what you don't realize is that's a huge part of game design. Is like figuring out what scale at which you're playing. You'd be surprised, and it makes it even harder when you're doing VR stuff because it's so clear how big or small something is in VR.
Is this level the size of a football field, or is this level half a mile long, or is this level the size of a tennis court?
So we did timings and distance tests and payload tests to make sure that moves at a correct speed, and that all works really well.
Yes. The timings hit just right.
The design is really cool. It runs at 90.
Yes.
Like a solid, non-interleaved 90 FPS. We still have to do some
on a 1080
testing.
On a 1080, but yes, it runs at a solid 90.
I think even
enemies, even when lots of stuff's going on, it's nice and solid.
So that's about done-ish. and so we're going to use that as the platform to test a lot of the upcoming features. Because the next thing that we're working on is new enemies.
Yes.
And with new enemies, new mechanics. So
that's going to be maybe the biggest change to all of this.
So one of our biggest issues was there's too much chaos in the Georgia maps because all the enemies are the same size. They all have about the same strength abilities, and there's just too much. There's too much happening all at once, and so you're no longer making good, conscientious decisions. You're just shooting everything that comes at you.
You must consume all of the tofu in this order, and it's all the exact same.
So one of the big things we're doing is we're going to implement small, medium, and large enemies, which we've talked about before. And small enemies are going to be mostly handled by your towers, and medium enemies are going to be things like the snails that you've seen, the Snailiens.
Yeah. The normal size.
Then you're going to get large enemies, like mini boss style enemies, and they're going to have like mechanics that you've got to solve. Then we're also rolling in player health, which is opening up a huge mechanically
we're gonna need to
large room that we can.
A lot of more tutorialing is going to have to happen for this, but you, the player, will finally be able to start taking damage from stuff, which is a new kind of path we're taking here.
So your towers won't take damage because what we found is
it's obnoxious.
It's just tedious.
Yes.
Right. But we're gonna allow you to take damage and like die. And it will allow us to do things like almost like World of Warcraft style area of effect, move out of the fire.
Well, if you guys
you've
played any MMO before, you're probably familiar with the raid boss, like Big Red Cone. Get out of that. Big Red Circle. Get out of that.
So the first big mini boss is going to be the Slimeback, which is a huge slug that a Snailien rides. And he has these huge glowing kind of nodules, think like a baneling, on him. And each nodule will have its own health bar. And you're going to need to shoot out the health, or the little nodules, to do a lot of damage to him and eventually kill him, but also to disable some of his abilities. And I think that's going to be really cool.
In a lot of ways, kind of like if you played Monster Hunter before, some of that kind of.
So we're rolling a little bit of that stuff, like kind of more raid bossy style enemies that will require a lot more attention, but be far more rewarding to kill. Then little enemies are rolling in. I think the big thing was not only were we throwing too much of the same and it being chaotic at players, but also it was performatively expensive to run that many snails because there's a lot of bones in a snail and they have a lot of effects and there's a lot of just kind of stuff. And what we're doing is we're rolling a lot of just the kind of trash into the lower enemies that will have less effects on them, less bones, less animations, less performative cost, so that when you do see snails, they're more interesting to fight, and we get back a ton of performance that we lost by having just a swarm of medium-sized enemies.
Yeah. And the benefit of that is that we can then have a swarm of very, very little enemies. Which makes, the more kind of action-packed, pack, they're just exploding all around you.
Yeah, it's just lots of little low-health enemies. That, like I said, your tower should be able to... If you're building out your tower defense, the goal here is towers handle from little up. So once they get up, they handle little stuff, and then once they get up like to middle-sized stuff, they start to be less effective, and large stuff, they're largely ineffective.
Because they don't know to do the mechanics that you, the player, know how to do because you are a smart human.
Or then the player works the other way around.
Yeah.
You do the big stuff, and you work down to the middle stuff, and in general, you don't touch the small stuff unless it's just kind of there and you can kill it. So we think that new hierarchy of combat will add some much needed decision making and clarity to the combat in the game. And it's looking really good. So we're very excited about that. It's still a ton of work for us to do, but we're rolling that in, and it's certainly going to be a better play experience in the future.
Yes, no, especially,
Yeah. All right, so that's it for this week. Update going out, Japan payloads, and new concepted enemies. We're going to show you some little teasers of the first payload map, and we're going to show you maybe some enemies that like the slime back, so that you guys have an idea of what it looks like. But other than that, what are you working on this week, Will?
Finishing up architecture stuff for the Japan environments. More windows, sides of slattings, jumbo columns. Like
there's a lot of little architecture-y stuff that you need to have.
The stuff that goes into either like both like the little buildings like in gardens, but also like your big like Japanese castles, which we need for reasons.
Yeah,
and that stuff's coming together. After that,
it looks great.
After that, we can that stuff gets cycled down an engine. You get chugging away at putting levels together, and then I take all those enemy concept art, and we start putting those in the game.
So you think architecture is going to get done in the next couple days?
Yeah, easily. Yeah,
and then we're going to move on to enemies. Yeah, I think next week it would be really cool to show them a fully modeled, fully animated, fully textured slime back.
I think that would be cool.
That would be pretty badass. Just give them an idea of like how big the scale is compared to like a regular snail.
They're big.
Like they're big. Like a
Snailian
rides it.
It's like, big old
think
big
like
old slug.
Difference between us and like say an elephant.
Yeah.
Or like somewhere between an elephant and a rhinoceros.
Yeah, it's kind of a larger rhinoceros size.
Super cool. All right, so that's it. I'm working on... What am I working on? Just level design in general.
Level design stuff, maybe some concept stuff.
I need to start doing towers. They've been kind of ignored. We've got 3 towers that are already concepted that are going out.
Kind of down the pipe.
But we've probably got to do 3 more to cover, like, we would really like to have, like, a frost or ice type tower. And maybe... like some other we've started thinking of towers that are not as good at single target and way more effective at scaling to handle lots of little trash.
Because that's going to become very relevant.
Because it's going to be really important.
With the mechanics changes.
Yep. So those are going to be really cool. They're going to add some diversity and some player decision.
Yeah.
Which is going to be awesome. So that's what I'm working on. So maybe you'll see a tower or 2 next week. Other than that, I think it's time to sign out. Thanks for playing, guys. Like always, if you do find bugs, which I'm sure there are thousands of them, little and small.
Yeah.
Also big.
Well, yeah.
No, but I'm sure there's a lot of bugs. If you do find one that you haven't heard us talk about, or you think that maybe we've overlooked it, certainly reach out to us at support.
Yes,
or through support at 562interactive.com, or a support ticket on our website.
Yeah.
That's super easy to find and to fill out, and that goes to the same place, and it does an actual ticket for us, and we can look at it from there.
Or you can go on the Steam forums.
There's lots of places to reach us. We read it all. So feel free to reach out to us that way. Have a great week. We will see you about this time next week.
Yeah.
For another fun update. All right. See you guys.